Hello folks, it's the Pace Chaser again. Welcome to another model review video, and this time we've got the Creative Master Northcord Mercedes-Benz Citaro 0530G articulated vehicle. The G in the chassis designation standing for Gelenkbus, which is German for articulated bus. The one that we've got is UK Bus 5018, catalogue number, released in February of 2007. 1,800 were produced. It's in the fleet of East London Bus and Coach, and it's a model of fleet number 23034, registered LX03HEU, or at least it should be registered that way. I'll come to that in a little bit. So in real life, the Citaro was first produced in 1997. It was available in rigid and articulated forms. It was brought to the UK in 2000 in rigid form, the four-wheeled rigid chassis, and then in 2002 the articulated version was introduced to the UK. Between 2002 and 2009, 462 articulated versions were sold in the UK, mainly of course to London operators. As is well known, the Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, decided to replace the Routemaster buses, and the lazy version of it is that the Citaros did that. They didn't really. Most of the earlier and indeed mid-range Routemaster conversions were done by other buses, more conventional types. It was only the later ones that were replaced directly by the Citaro RTX. Other operators in the UK that bought them were Travel West Midlands, First York, and various airports around the place. In addition to the UK one, 17 were also supplied new to the Republic of Ireland Aircoach of Dublin, which was part of First, and most, if not all of those, later ran for operators in the UK. So Creative Master Northcord introduced their model of the articulated version in November 2005, and between then and May 2010, 14 releases were produced. They also did the rigid Citaro, the four-wheeled rigid version. I will review one of those separately in the future when I get a suitable one to replace. It's another of those models that I've had quite a few of them through my hands over the years, but that was before I started doing review videos, so here we go. But yeah, when I get another one, I will do a review of it, and when I've done it, I'll put a link in the description to this one, so you can go and watch it if you want to. As well as the 14 that were released, 2 other versions were announced, but they weren't produced before Creative Master Northcord went bankrupt in late 2011. As we said before in these review videos, Northcord Model Company bought the rights to use the mouldings and things in November 2012. But today, as I'm doing this in 2025, they haven't released any further Citaro RTX, and I don't think they've got any plans to do so. It won't come as any surprise to regular viewers to know that Creative Master Northcord spent money doing different variations. They only did 2 variations of this one, the rigid one. They also did the later front. This has got the earlier front, as you'll see in a minute. The later front of the Citaro looked like that, with the big kind of intake grille where the Mercedes badges, but they didn't do that in the articulated version. So it's not suitable, this model, for various of the real life ones, like the First York ones. They had the later front, which this hasn't, so it's not suitable for everything that ran in the UK. But as I said, they did do 2 versions of it. They did the London 3-door version, which is the most common, and they also did the provincial 2-door version of it, with the front entrance door and the centre exit in the rear section there, and missing this door here. So there were 2 versions of it. So as I said, this vehicle should be registered LX03HEU. As you can see, it's a second-hand one that I've bought, and the previous owner's done a kind of rudimentary code 3 thing on it by blanking out the registration plate and the destination blind, etc., with a black marker pen. So it would have an LX03HEU registration. I'll go through the history of the real bus because it's pretty interesting, to be honest. So it was new to Selkent, South East London Kent Omnibus Company, which was part of Stagecoach in March 2003. By that date, Stagecoach had amalgamated its Selkent and East London bits into the Stagecoach London brand, although they retained a separate legal lettering. So yeah, new in March 2003 for Route 453 between Deptford Bridge and Marylebone. The 453 was a new route that had been introduced with articulated vehicles in mind, so it wasn't a Routemaster replacement. In January 2006, the 453's frequency was reduced. It hadn't quite worked as they hoped, and some vehicles, including this one, fleet number 23034 LX03HEU, transferred across to the East London subsidiary of Stagecoach to provide extra capacity on Route 25 that ran between Oxford Circus and Ilford. It was already operated by Arctics that were slightly newer than these ones, but they brought a few of these across just to, as I say, give extra capacity. On the 24th of August 2006, Stagecoach sold its London operation to the Australian Macquarie Bank, who renamed the entire operation the East London Bus Group. The vehicles kept the fleet number, so it remained as 23034. Now, bizarrely, on the 14th of October 2010, Stagecoach bought East London Bus Group back from the Macquarie Bank for less than Macquarie had paid them for it, so win-win. So it passed back into Stagecoach ownership, part of Stagecoach London, and still with the fleet number 23034. Now, as is known, when Boris Johnson became the Mayor of London, he said he was going to replace the articulated vehicles. And to be fair to Boris, one of the things that it made him popular was the fact that if he said something, that he was going to do something, he actually did it. However bizarre that was. So he did replace the articulated vehicles. Not really so much with the new Route Master or new Bus for London, whatever you want to call it. Again, some of those did replace Arctics, but a lot of the Arctics were replaced by other types of vehicle first. So, yeah. So, on the 25th of June 2011, Stagecoach lost the contract for the 25 and the articulated vehicles were withdrawn. The contract passed to First London, who used some new double-deckers on it. So 23034 was withdrawn. Now, a lot of these vehicles in London service were leased rather than being purchased. And the reason for that was that the contracts to run the routes only lasted for a certain number of years. You might get a short extension if you ran it well, but still the length of the contract wasn't equivalent to the length of the expected life of a vehicle. So rather than buy buses that they might not need in the future, I mean, on conventional types of vehicle like rigid single-deckers or double-deckers, it wasn't a problem. They often bought them because then they could just transfer them to regional fleets if their work in London dried up. But of course, these articulated vehicles, they didn't need, nobody else outside London needed them really. So there wasn't the option to transfer them away. So a lot of them were leased so that if the contract ended, they could just be returned to the lessor. And that is what happened with 23034. It was sent back to its leasing company, which was Dawson Rentals. Some of the Arctics worked elsewhere. Arriva found roles for some of theirs in Malta, which didn't really work out in the long term, and also in Leicester, which worked a bit better. Go Ahead transferred some of theirs to Brighton, and some of the other ones finished up working at airports alongside the ones that had been new to various airports. Most of them were stored at a variety of sites, including some old airfields, and eventually they were scrapped. Some of them after criminally short careers, really. You know, it was, I know Boris said he was going to replace them, but it was a hell of a waste of money, to be honest. A lot of vehicles that were hardly running ended up going for scrap. It might have been thought that this bus, LX03HEU, was one of them because it just vanished for about 5 years. As I said, it was withdrawn from London service in June 2011. However, in 2016, it appeared in the unlikely destination of Stromness in Orkney with J&V coaches, its sister vehicle LX03HEJ, which was also modelled by Creative Master Northcord, went up there to be used on cruise ship transfers. Basically, cruise ships moor in Orkney, and the passengers off them need transport around to go to the towns and things and see the sights. So that's what they did. They were sent up to Orkney, of all places, to do the cruise ship work. HEJ has been withdrawn in more recent years, but as I'm recording this in August of 2025, LX03HEU, the one modelled here, is still active with J&V coaches, although J&V was sold, I believe, in 2024 to some new owners which intend to rename it as Orkney Transport. But yeah, for the time being, if you want to find this vehicle, it is still in service in the Orkney Islands at the ripe old age of 22, so not bad. So next we'll do the all-important look around, and then we'll talk about the price if you want to add one of these to your collection. The first thing to mention is that these models are huge. Obviously, articulated vehicles are quite big. This one is 23.5 centimetres long, not including the sticking out mirror there. That probably takes it to about 24.5, maybe even 25. So they are humongous. I've had a few through my hands in the past that I've worked on, and they are difficult to work on because obviously on the workbench they tend to trash everything round them because you swing it round and just knock over everything else, you know, demolish 15 other models. But anyway, so they are large. They're even bigger if they've got a box. This one hasn't. It's a second-hand one that I bought that was unboxed. But yeah, if they've got the box round them, they are even bigger. So they're very difficult to fit into your display case and things like that. And even on dioramas, you can see my normal little bit of board that I do these reviews on is struggling to accommodate it. But anyway, let's do the look around. So the front captures the look very well of the Citaro. You've got the kind of sticking out blind box there, the marker lights up top, which appear to be painted on, but they look pretty decent. It would have a blind for the 25 to Ilford, but as I say, somebody's put a marker pen over it to blank it out. The single piece windscreen, nicely modelled. You've got the wipers there, which are separately fitted. They look pretty decent, obviously, with the black. Just try and get the camera to focus. Sorry about that. With the black at the bottom of the windscreen, they don't stand out particularly well, but they are there and they look quite nice if you take the time to look for them. This bit of graffiti or whatever on the front is not original. It's, again, something that the previous owner has done. But the front panel looks pretty nice. The sort of mouldings there that were a feature of the early fronts. Again, contrast that to the late front there. But yeah, they look pretty decent. The Mercedes badge cast in, and that looks nice. And there was a bit of an attempt to make the lights look like glass. They're a kind of strange plasticky silvery thing, but they do look pretty nice. Maybe not on the video, but as I've always said on these, I'm doing this close up, it does them a bit of a disservice. But yeah, you've got the headlights and the indicators. There's an attempt to make them look like glass. They do look pretty decent from the normal viewing distance. Obviously up close like this they look a bit strange. Some nice moulded detail in the bumper, and it would have the registration plate on, but again it's been blanked out. Near side mirror on this one is present. As you can see, it's on a massive sticking out arm, just asking to be broken off, and that has happened to the offside one. The offside one's missing. Common feature on these models, they are quite vulnerable. Round to the near side, I'll do it in two sections because I can't fit the whole thing in the camera. But yeah, it looks pretty decent. The windows are a plastic insert that are just sort of stuck in. They all come off together if you take it apart. If you push it, the entire window and door unit comes off. Obviously in two halves on this one, the front section and the back section are two different bits. But yeah, they look pretty decent. It's a good representation of the sort of flush glazing of the rail thing. There is some relief to the door, some moulded detail, and the handrails, I believe, are just painted on there, but they look realistic enough. Wheel looks nice. You've got the somewhat lost in the fussy advert livery here, but you've got the sort of low floor stickers and the wheelchair accessible stickers and things. The representation of the door control there, which are just printed onto this. They're on the window or in a corner of the window on the rail things, and it is just printed on. So if you're repainting, just be aware you're going to put that one back on. Again, it's somewhat lost in delivery, but there are some panel lines cast in which look nice. There's a bit of a, I think it's a marker light there sticking out that's cast in as well. And it all looks pretty good. You've got the wheelchair ramp on the middle door as it would be in a London bus. And you've even got the maker's name printed onto it, which is a very, very nice detail indeed. The rubber corridor connection, it is actually rubber on the model. Looks a little bit misshapen. They often do. They tend to misshape. I don't know if you can see on the video if I put it down like that, but this model has kind of taken on a bit of an inverted V shape. The front and the back are slightly downwards. It's not a massive problem. Some people might not like it on the models, but a lot of the articulated buses of various makes, not just the Mercedes, in real life did tend to settle into either this with the front and the back slightly down, or the other one was the front and the back slightly up, so they were in a V shape like that. So it's not quite sitting level, but it does look realistic from my experience of Arctics anyway, so I'm not bothered about it. It just adds a bit to the model. Back section, again, doors and windows look pretty good. You've got the vents there just printed on. The fleet number is there buried in the advert, again, 23034. And again, the wheel looks decent. You've got the emergency door sort of controls there, and there's some lovely warning notices there, look, on the door. Really, really nice printed detail. Very nice indeed. Go around to the back end. There's no back window on this one. The advert's printed over it. It would have had a contravision on the rail thing. Bizarrely, it's just blank yellow, but anyway, they did that. So yeah, there's no actual window on it. Just be aware if you're repainting one of these that you will have to just blank the back off. Again, the repeater lights up there are printed on, so they would need reapplying if you've repainted it. And it would normally have the Route 25 blind, but again, it's been blanked out with a marker pen. Fleet number up there. It all looks pretty decent. You've got the reflective thing there to warn following drivers that it's an articulated vehicle. And again, somewhat lost in there, you've got the sort of long vehicle signs. The registration plate on the back has survived, LX03HEU. You can just about see it again in the fussiness of the advert. The backlights are there, again they're looking a bit lost, but they are there. And again there's an attempt to make them look like glass. They look pretty decent. And yeah, there's some reflectors in there, basically lost in the design. I'm going to repaint this bus because, well, that's what I bought it for. But yeah, it's a very, very fussy advert. On the offside, the big engine ventilation grille there is cast in. There is... You can hear me rubbing my thumb across it there. So that's cast in detail, that's very nice. You've got the water filler again printed onto the corner of the window as it would be on the rail thing. Representation of some sort of luggage rack rails printed on the inside of the window. They look a little bit printed, that you can tell they're printed on, but yeah, they're not too bad. Again, nice detail on the windows there, the emergency exit lettering and things like that. Panel lines cast in, and it all looks pretty good. Again, this bit here isn't original, somebody's just written that on with a pen. Go onto the roof, some lovely detail there. You've got the little unit on the front, which I believe is the cab air conditioning. You've got the various bits and pieces sticking up. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what they did in real life on the rail bus. I mean, that's the air conditioning pod for the saloon air conditioning in the front part. And that's the one for the back part, looking very nice. I believe these were lift-up ventilators, these little rectangular things. I'm not quite sure what that is. I think it's probably the radio pod or the bus communications pod, you know, for the next stop information, things like that. They are a little bit wonkily applied. They're obviously, it looks like they're put on separately, and they're not quite in line with the actual sides of the bus. This is kind of skew width there, and that's skew width the other way, but they don't look too bad, really. From normal viewing distance, you can't tell. And again, you've got a little bit there, which again, it's probably something to do with the communications system on the bus, and again, some vents. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. If I go around to the chassis, you've got basic chassis detail there, the framework, you've got the pipe and cable runs and things like that. I mean, it does actually pivot. I was going to say the detail of the pivot, but the model does pivot slightly, as you can see. You can also see that the corridor connections come in loose on that side. Again, it's a fairly frequent issue with these articulated models, because they are designed that you can sort of bend them a little bit, but then in order to do it, obviously it's a rubber corridor, but it's just glued on to the model sort of fore and aft, and it does tend to come unglued if you push it too much, and obviously, you know, somebody has, and it's just coming unglued there. It's not a big problem, just glue it back on again, and just be careful, they don't bend fully. You can't bend it round as the rail one would. They do flex a little bit just so you can pose it a little bit, but they don't do a proper, you know, going around a tight bend thing. So don't radge it about too much, because you will break the corridor. But yeah, again, underside bit of the axle detail, and you know, a little tiny bit of the engine block detail there. It's not in much relief, but it is there. A bit of the exhaust. So yeah, just basic detail, looking pretty decent. Interior of a Northcord, always little short of a masterpiece. Very, very nice indeed. You've got all the different colours. The side walls are done in a kind of mid-grey colour. The driver's doors in a different colour. The floors a different colour. You've got the handrails there done in orange, as they would be on a Stagecoach bus. The seats look a little bit purpley. I think they would be kind of blue, the beach ball maquette, but they look purple on it. Well, they are purple on this one. They don't just look purple, they are purple, but they look decent enough. And you've got the individual seat backs modelled on. It all looks pretty nice, to be honest. As I say, Northcord interior is very, very nice indeed. Just try with some difficulty to get it around and show you the driver's cab. But yeah, very, very nice interiors. Always a strong point of the Northcord ones. They put a lot of detail into their models, and that's probably why they end up going bust, to be fair, because they must have spent an absolute fortune on developing them and designing them, and then they didn't sort of do that many releases to claw the money back. So how much will one of these fine machines cost you if you want to add one to your collection? I'm going to upset you in a bit by telling you how much that one was, but I've had a look on eBay for the purposes of the video. I'm doing this in sort of mid to late August of 2025, and the cheapest one I could find was £42.28 plus £3.38 postage, so £45.66 all in. And that was another East London one, but in another of the University of East London adverts. There were three different ones, a yellow-based one, a blue-based one, and a kind of pink-based one. And Northcord did all three of them. So this was the blue-based one, which is a model of LX03HEJ, the other one that went up to J&V coaches in Orkney. And as I say, it was £45.66. The most expensive I could find was £79.95 plus £3.38 postage, so £83.33 all in, and that was a go-ahead London Central one. So yeah, between £45 and about £85. The catalogue number we've got 5018, the one that I'm looking at here, 23034. There was only one available. It was £70 plus £4.50 postage and packing, so £74.50 all in. And I had a quick look at the Liz Keith website, the model shop in Eastbourne. They had a model of HEJ in the pink-based University of East London livery. It carried two different versions, and that was £55. Postage would be about £4 or £5 on top of that, so you're looking at about 60 quid from Liz Keith. This particular one cost me £19.67, including postage and packing from eBay. Now, I took a bit of a gamble on it, and this is why it was available. I saw it for sale, and I thought, well, that's cheap, and I want one of those to review. But, you know, I was a bit broke at the time. I thought, yeah, I can't really afford it, so I just kind of left it. I was quite surprised to see it was still there a few days later on. Now, the reason for that was simple. I mean, yeah, it's cheap, because it's partly because it's unboxed, and partly because it's only got one mirror, but the listing was a bit ambiguous, and sometimes this works in your favour. It basically said it may or may not have its mirrors and wipers, so there was no guarantee, and I see what the seller was doing. As it turned out, it has got both wipers and one mirror, but obviously posting an unboxed bus is a bit difficult. It's hard to, especially with mirrors like this, to sort of get enough packaging around them that if the parcel gets thrown about in transit, it doesn't break the mirror off. So that was why they were hedging the bets, I think. But that put some people off, and it also said sold as seen, but there was only one photo of it, which was taken at this angle, and it was a portrait photo, so the back of the bus was kind of blurry, so you couldn't really see what you were getting. Now, it could have gone one of two ways. Obviously, I could have taken delivery of it and found that the back end was completely missing, nothing was on it, it had no wheels on the offside or whatever, but as it was, as you can see, it turned out to be quite a decent model. It's got a mirror missing, and that's it. Hey ho, not a massive problem. So yeah, I'm quite chuffed with it, and that's why it was £19.67. But as I say, if you want to get one, generally speaking, somewhere between £45 and £85. It is a nice model. As I said, just be aware it is huge, so you know, if you're short of space, it probably isn't the model for you. If you want a Citaro, I'll probably get a rigid one. As I say, I'll do a review of one of those in due course. But for now, as always, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.